Proud of You is a parenting advice podcast and support group for dads hosted by two goofy dads. They are not pediatricians, nutritionists, OBGYNs, psychologists, nor are they authorities on parenting. They're just two dinguses trying to figure it all out. Their advice should not be taken as expert information. Parenting looks different for everyone, and there's no wrong way to be a dad. Frankly, if you're taking the time to listen to a podcast about it, you're already doing a great job. And these dads are proud of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Derek Mata.
And I'm Andrew Goody, and we are proud of you. This week, we're talking about keeping up with the Joneses.
Or, like you said, not keeping up with the Joneses.
Keeping up with the Joneses. Most specifically, why the concept of keeping up with the Joneses is pretty terrible in most situations.
And you would think it was an outdated concept, but it really isn't, because it's one of those things that, like, hey, I had a kid. This is what they bought their kid. This is what they did for their kid. But, like, it doesn't matter. Your kid, I've mentioned it before, your kid doesn't care about those things.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not really an outdated concept, right? The concept is jealousy, right? It's seeing somebody else's, and it can be any number of things, right? It can be seeing somebody else's like cool car and wishing that you could have that, but you have to drive a minivan because you've got 4 kids, or seeing somebody's super awesome flat screen TV and wishing that you had that, but you don't because you have to feed those 4 kids or whatever, you know? It can also be, parenting stuff, right? Like there's so much comparison factor with like infants and newborns of like, oh, my kid is in the 99th percentile for height, or my kid's in the 99th percentile for weight, which are wildly arbitrary numbers that don't actually mean anything in the long run.
Yeah, it took me a long time. It took me about 4 kids to finally figure out that, like, wait a second, I know what they mean, and I know they don't mean shit.
Well, I mean, they mean that your kid is in whatever percentile at that given point in time, but that like is scientifically proven to mean nothing over the lifetime of that kid, right? Like I could not tell you how many kids I know. My nephew was in the 99th percentile for height and weight as a baby, like all the way up until he was like 4 years old. And now he's almost 10 and he is the smallest kid in his class in all of those percentiles. And I know people who are the other way around, right? I know people who are like 6'4" that were super tiny babies.
I was a very small child. I was the shortest one in class up until, I want to say, late middle school. And now I'm your average height person, but like I never thought I was going to be big. But when I say like the numbers don't mean shit, pretty much what you said, like, like you're like, okay, cool, my baby's healthy, but like it doesn't actually affect anything further down the road. There's so many other things that your kid's going to be exposed to that actually matter.
And it always becomes this weird like competition, right? And that's kind of the keeping up with the Joneses thing of like you'll meet another dad and they'll be like, oh, my baby's in the 99th percentile. And like, unless your kid is in like the 1 percentile, like you don't really need to worry about that number. Like it's cool information to have. It's good to know. It's fun. And if you enjoy tracking that, great. Like,
good on you. I'm not judging.
You go, Glenn Coco. But like, I just, I don't care. I don't care if your kid is taller than mine or shorter than mine or bigger than mine or smaller than mine. Like, as long as my daughter is healthy and as long as your kid is doing well, like that's all that matters.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we just want our kids to be healthy and grow up together.
Yeah. Well, the same thing can be true with milestones, right? I know that was a big thing when Alana first started walking. That like all of our friends who had kids that were about the same age were like, "Oh man, she's walking. She's doing it so early." And I was like, "Well, like, I mean, sure, maybe, but also like that just means that I have to chase her more. Like, it's not necessarily a good thing that she hit that milestone early, right?"
Damn it, baby gates everywhere now.
Yeah, I saw Emily sent me this hysterical Instagram reel that was like. It was a mom, and she was like, "My baby finally stopped napping. Like, my baby finally dropped her last nap." And this other mom was like, "Congratulations! Here's your medal for your achievement." And the girl was like, "So what now?" And the other mom was like, "Oh, your baby's going to be miserable from the time that they would have napped until they went to bed, because they need that nap. They won't take it, but they need that nap. So they're just going to be horrible, and it's going to be awful for you. And like, that's so many of these milestones are like, I can't wait until my kid starts XYZ. And then you realize like every one of those milestones is one step away from holding that tiny little baby, right? And then you blink and you've got a 14-year-old.
Yeah, and that's something that we're going through right now is we're potty training Ivy. I say we. She's doing it because she's doing it while I'm at work. And we're super excited. Yes, no more diapers. We did it with the formula. Like, sweet, no more formula. Now we're like, no more diapers. And then you sit there and you think, this is my last baby.
Yeah.
And then just get sad.
Yeah.
I'm not having any more, but you still get sad.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that like, yeah, you were actually one of the first people to tell me like, I can't remember what you said, but like you never know when the last time that your kid's going to ask you to pick you up is, was the gist of it, right? That like you don't know that until after the fact. So like, and it's something that I've internalized. Like every time Alana asked me to pick her up, I had a shoulder injury a couple weeks ago, and I was still picking her up every time she asked me to pick her up, to my detriment, because I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm always going to pick you up every time you ask me to pick you up. And like, God's willing, she's going to keep asking me to pick her up and throw her over my shoulder until she's like, I don't know, 25. but like, there's gonna come a day when she doesn't run up to me with her arms up and go, Dada, pick me up, right? Like, and I want to make sure that I get every single opportunity between now and then.
Yeah, and because sometimes Noah will be like, pick me up, and I'm like, not right now. And I'm like, wait, no, because what if I never pick him up again? And then I will pick him up, or I will make sure to go back and pick him up, because I don't want the last time to be the prior time.
Well, and there's also something to be said for like, if they ask and you say no, eventually they'll stop asking, right?
Yep, which we have also covered. And it's one of those things, like, I don't know if you've seen it on Facebook, where you have these air quotes older kids who are still being picked up or still being carried or still being kissed by their parents. People are like, oh, how could you? And people are like, wow, I can see you didn't grow up in a loving household. Like, again,
yeah, man.
I may stop kissing my kids at 5 years old. And if you want to keep doing it until they're 25, like, you do you, because that is a sign of affection. Like, I will continue to give my children kisses as much as they want. Obviously, at some point it does get a little weird, but yeah, again, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you're kissing your 8-year-old. Well, I stopped when they were 4. Like, but why?
Yeah. Well, and like, I don't know. Alana's at that weird phase right now where like her kiss boundaries, she has no actual understanding of what a kiss is outside of the noise. And so sometimes like her and Emily will be going somewhere and she's like, give Dada a kiss. And she'll walk like about a foot away from me and go, and then run away. And then other times she'll run up and just like full on the mouth kiss me, like, And so as your kids get older, maybe kiss them on the mouth a little less.
But, yeah.
But like,
I mean, Tom Brady and whatever age his kids were.
Yeah. But like, my grandma kissed me on the cheek till the day she died, man. Like, and if she was somehow walked through the door right now, I would absolutely give my grandma a kiss on the cheek today, so like, don't be afraid to keep that affection going, as long as, and obviously this is all within the spectrum, right? Like, it's what feels good for you and what feels good for your kids, because that's important too. And maybe we'll talk about that in another episode of boundaries and not forcing your kids to kiss and hug strangers, but that's a whole nother topic.
Or even yourself. but like, yes, don't be like, oh, well, next door Jim over here came over and said it was weird and he stopped doing it, so now I'm going to do it. Like, no, keep doing it. If that's what you do and that's what your family does, and keep doing that thing. Yeah. Don't compare yourself at all.
Yeah. And to kind of bring us back to the topic at hand of not comparing, right? I think that physicality plays into that a lot, of like picking up your kid, right? I am in the very privileged position of being in good physical shape and being able to pick up, like, my kid's pretty big. Alana's like over 30 pounds now. She's a little dumbbell. Ivy's a big old chunk. Like, You
yes,
know,
she is.
like there are people who can't pick up their kids for whatever reason, right? Whether it's a disability or just they're not physically strong. Like, you know, when I play with Alana, I like pick her up and toss her up into the air. And like Emily does a little bit, but she can't quite play that game because she just doesn't have the upper body strength to chuck a 35-pound baby up into the air the way that I do. If you see another dad who's playing with their kid and you're, you know, feeling bad because you can't do that, like shut that influence down, right? Like if it's something that you see and you're like, oh, that seems fun, I want to do that with my kid, go do it. Be like, chase that instinct, do it for sure. But if you're like, man, like I don't know, in a wheelchair or I've got a broken arm or like whatever the case is, and you can't do that thing that other dad is doing, don't beat yourself up about that. Don't feel bad about that, because I'm sure there are things that you do with your kid that person would be jealous of, right? We all have our different dynamics and our different fun and our different ways that we show affection and love for each other.
Yeah. And you know, kind of tying that all together, like I had it there. I had it and I lost it. But because you kind of cover it like, hey, I can't throw, but this is, you know, I do wheelies or whatever. And, you know, assuming wheelchair bound or whatever.
Yeah.
I wish I could. Those are one things I've seen people do. And like, I'd fucking bust my face open on the falling backwards. We all have our things. And, you know, kind of getting back to the let's say material things. You said minivans. Sometimes you're like, oh, minivans. Oh, but I wish I could afford a new minivan. All I have is this 1992, I don't know if I could know, Ford Windstar. I will tell you, I cannot remember any car that my grandpa had except for the conversion van that he had, because that was the coolest thing. Your kid's probably going to just remember the cool features that whatever you had or the trips you took in it. They don't care that you had a 92 and fucking old Timmy's mom had a fucking 2024 or whatever that's out nowadays. Or somebody's got, I moved it. Over here I have this nice, brand new, nice, super cool crib that some people probably wish they could have had. I can say that we bought Noah's crib secondhand because that's what we could afford. Like,
yeah,
times
totally.
change. And at no point did I say, man, somebody's going to judge me because, hey, my kid is taken care of. They're in a safe spot.
Yeah. And I'll say there were times when I worried what people would judge me for getting secondhand or on the flip side, I've been worried that people would think I'm too bougie with what I'm getting for my kid or whatever, you know? And at the end of the day, like I just have to check in with that impulse and go like, man, that's just my own insecurities, right? Like nobody's actually going to give a fuck. And if they do, fuck them. You know what?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Like, you know, if somebody is going to look at the fact that I bought a fancy new crib for my baby or whatever and think like, oh, you're spoiling that child, that's not somebody I want in my life. That's not a person who understands the relationship that I'm trying to have with my kid and the way that I'm trying to take care of her. And in the same way, and again, we're assuming a baseline of like your kid is safe and well cared for, right?
Yes.
If you're getting a used car seat that's 10 years old and doesn't have seatbelts in it, I'm going to judge you for that. And by judge you, I mean ask you what's up, and if I need to buy you a safe thing for your kid, or if you just don't know because you can't drive with your kid in that rickety ass car seat, right? Like assuming that your kid is cared for and everything, so much of it just comes down to preference and affluence. Like, do you need a super bougie $1,200 European stroller with the nicest, smoothest wheels? No. You can get by with one of those little folding umbrella strollers that basically doesn't even have wheels. It's like the shitty luggage rack.
Which, you know what, those are great. I love that stroller.
But you know what? They work. They get the job done. You know, so like, don't beat yourself up if it's a matter of affluence. Like that comes and goes in waves, right? Having a kid's expensive. There's a lot of stuff that's fighting for your money. And you know, even if you are pretty well off, you have to make those decisions of what you're going to invest in. Right. So like, just kind of try to curb those mental thoughts of what people are going to judge you for, positive or negative, because I'm sure there are also people out there who are buying, like, I don't know, Gucci diaper bags because they're worried about what people think about them. Put that influence out of your brain too. Like, nobody cares, man. Buy the one that has the best pocket layout.
The factuals, right? Yeah. I will say, like, as a dad, and having known many dads in my life, like, dads usually don't give a shit. But I will say, if I see a dad walking around with a Gucci diaper bag, I'm gonna be like, dude, what the fuck? But if I see like those tactical diaper bags that dads have, I'm gonna walk up to that guy and be like, dude, that's a badass fucking diaper bag. Like,
yeah. Derek at the park with a spare diaper in a tourniquet slot IFAC pull. I got you.
Hey, don't judge me. I do what I want.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think so. I'm curious on your take on this, right? Because you're a car guy. So Emily and I had the conversation with another couple friend that we have, because they're looking at having, or they were at the time, this was last year. They were looking at having another kid, and they were like, it is only practical for us to have a 3-seater, like a 3-row vehicle. Right.
Okay.
So like, the dad was hella pro minivan. The mom didn't want a minivan. She wanted to get like a crossover SUV or like a Subaru that had 3 rows or something.
As a lot of wives do, because I had the same conversation in my house.
So I think that there's a stigma to a woman driving a minivan, right? There's a negative association there where dudes are just practical, and minivans are really practical. They're the best thing to haul kids around in. You can fit more lumber in a minivan with 2 rows of seats folded down than you can fit in the bed of an F-150. Get the Honda Odyssey, go. Like, sign me up, coach. Put me in. But like, what do you think as a car? Because this is the quintessential, like, keeping up with the Joneses, right? Is like having the Cadillac in the driveway. Like, the car that you choose for your kids, I think, is something that kind of people not necessarily judge you on, but people see it and are like, oh, you're a minivan dad or whatever.
Okay, so it's funny that you mentioned the lumber and the minivan. So when Noah was born, it was just the 4 of us. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you remember it, my F-150, my black one.
I loved that truck.
Yeah.
That King Ranch.
Everybody loved the truck. We still talk about it to this day, but I digress. Like, I don't think I put any lumber in that ever.
I think I put more lumber in that truck than you ever did, because that was your truck that I borrowed a few times because I needed a truck.
You bought your entertainment center. I remember that. But the wife's crossover that she has currently, that's 3rd-row seating. You know how many times we've gone to Lowe's or Home Depot and put baseboards or long piping or whatever in, like 8-foot, 9-foot pieces, like.
Yeah,
more than I've probably ever done in a truck.
Totally.
To be completely honest with you, like, truck guy. Like, I grew up in Texas and we drive trucks, but like, there's nothing wrong. Like, minivans, 3rd-row seat crossovers will do everything you need. If you need a sheet of plywood, then go rent a truck for $20 from Home Depot. Like, yeah, it's not worth the extra payments.
Yeah. And the fuel efficiency and all that goes along with it, right?
Oh, see, I don't care about fuel efficiency. You see what I drive outside?
Yeah, touche. But like, it's just one of those things that it always cracks me up, because like I 100%, like, Emily and I had this conversation that, like, when we hit that point where we want that 3rd-row vehicle, like, I'm going to just buy us a minivan. Like, we're gonna talk about the budget and we're gonna talk about features and all that kind of stuff, but like, I already know what van we're gonna have. It's not gonna be a conversation.
It's funny though, because like we were anti-van for the longest time, and then she went out of town for work, and the only thing they had, I can't remember, somehow she got a minivan as her rental car. And she fell in love with it.
Yeah, it's like, great.
Super anti-minivan. She drove one, saw all the features, everything it could do, and like, okay, wow. I will also say, and the F-150 rear-facing car seats, tight fit. And her Chevy Traverse rear-facing car seat fits perfectly. Minivans,
Yep.
it would fit perfectly. Like, sometimes you got to put your pride aside. The truck can come later.
Man, and like, we're not sponsored by Honda, but like, the Honda Odyssey has a built-in vacuum in the back. It has a shop vac where you pull the hose out and you can clean up all the goldfish and the Cheeto crumbs and the veggie straws and whatever else your kid has thrown all over the car. Just built right into it. You go to the beach, you get all sandy and nasty, you get into your car, you just vacuum that right out.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to some place to get your car detailed. That alone sold. Like,
or take
so
your
many
vacuum
other
to the
features.
garage, or take your shop back out. Like,
Yeah.
that is the one that I remember telling her a couple of years ago. Like, hey, if we need a third row, look at this one. It has a vacuum. Like, that was my potential selling
It's
point.
great.
Is this vacuum?
It's got a vacuum. It's got built-in like TVs in the headrest. Like, you're set to go, man. But
The kids are
anyway,
happy. But like, if you can't afford something like that, like, cool. Like,
yeah, of course.
like
If you're rocking a used, Astro van from the 80s, because that's what you can afford, like, just make sure that your car seats are properly installed. You're good to go.
get those TVs that mount to the back of your seat. Probably cheaper in the long run, anyways. To be completely honest with you, like, your kids don't care if they have a TV. They have a TV.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's there's so many ways, right, that we compete with each other, that we I don't want to say judge each other, because that not everybody approaches it that way, but I think more often than not, we worry about being judged, where really other people are just jealous of what we have. Like,
Yeah, I can see that.
and or we're jealous of what other people have. Obviously the situation is varying, but just setting that aside and realizing that, like, most people are probably, like, anybody who you're worried would be jealous of you, whatever. Anybody who you're worried would judge you probably doesn't even notice you exist.
Yeah,
Like, that's a really shitty way to say that, but like, if you see that dad with a Gucci diaper bag and you're like, oh man, he sees me carrying around diapers in like a JanSport, he probably thinks I'm poor. You know what? He probably does, and he probably didn't even notice that you walked in. Like,
no,
and who cares?
Not. Or like, hell, if they give you an extra long look, it might be somebody likes your super cool diaper bag, or somebody likes the outfit you put your kids in, or something. Sometimes I will stare and be like, hey, look at that over there. Like, there's a well-dressed kid, well-dressed dad, well-dressed family. Hey,
yeah.
Like, again, diaper bag, because that's the biggest thing. That is the largest item you will carry other than your child. And like, man, if I had another one, that's what or hey, I'm going to, what's the word I'm looking for here? Tell a dad I know who's in the market for one. Hey, I saw this one. Look into that. Like, don't assume everything is negative.
Yeah. And I think this kind of goes hand in hand with this, right? And I'm going to piggyback off of you telling another dad, right? So many things for kids are really expensive and very, like, age or time specific.
Yeah.
Be cool. Trade shit with other dads. I'm a hiking dad. We've talked about this, right? I'm an outdoor dad. I like going out. I like going camping. I like going hiking. I have an amazing backpack carrier for Alana to ride in my back when we take, like, long hiking trips. It is I think new. They're like $400. It's an Osprey Pico Light 2. Not that anybody gives a shit.
Yeah, I will remember to look that up later.
I love it. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I did not buy it. I would not pay that price. I mean, if I had the money, sure, but like, I would not prioritize that amongst all of the other things that are fighting for my money. My friend Evan bought it because him and his kid hiked a lot. His kid outgrew it in like 2 years, because that's how long it takes a kid to hit the weight limit on one of those. And he gave it to me. And like, I offered to pay him for it. I offered it, and he was like, dude, like, it's literally sitting in my garage. What am I going to do with it? Take it. So I'm carrying Alana around in it. And when she outgrows it, depending on how close we are to having a second baby to throw into it that is of the requisite weight limit, I'm either going to keep it for that next baby, or I'm going to pass it along to another dad who might need it and not have the $400 to drop on a hiking backpack.
I like that. Like, especially because like I'm a trader. I love to be like, I got this, give me that. Like,
well, and here's the thing, man, like, especially with kids, right? Like, a lot of people have, I don't want to say kids in sequence because that sounds weird, but people have kids, multiple children. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So like, you have stopped having kids. So when Noah outgrows something, you can give it to Ivy. When Ivy outgrows something, you're not going to have another baby that will fit in that. Give it to me and I'll put Alana in it. Yeah. Similarly, if people have kids of different ages, right? Like maybe I have, you know, if we were in the same situation, right? Where like I have a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old and you've got a 14-year-old and a 1-year-old. As my 2-year-old outgrows things, I'll give them to you for your 1-year-old. As your 12-year-old outgrows things, you'll give them to me for my 10-year-old. Like we can kind of trade back and forth and find that, you know, community with each other. And it doesn't always have to be 1-to-1, right? Like Evan, if you're listening, I love you, dude. Evan gave me that backpack with 0 strings attached. Like I did not give him anything in return except for friendship and camaraderie. I've bought him a couple beers over the years, and that's about the only thing that I gave him in return for that bag. And so like, it doesn't have to be like a trade, but you know, just understand, like, you know, pack and plays.
Yes, that's a big
like
one.
Diaper bags, like these things that you buy that you spend like a pretty hefty amount of money on for a good one, and you're going to use for 2 years. And then if you don't have another kid, or if you're, you know, on your last kid or whatever the case is, like you have no use for that thing. And you spent all of this money on it, and maybe you can help another dad out and make them not spend so much money on whatever that thing is, right?
Yeah, because you know sometimes, I mean, I like to make a buck. We all like to make an extra buck, but like sometimes just helping somebody out who's in need feels better than making that extra $20 or whatever. Like, I couldn't tell you how much shit I've given away in the years that have been worth something. Like, cool, have it. It will benefit you more than it will benefit me.
Yeah, totally. Well, and that's so true of so many things, right? Like I have 1,000,001 things that I bought for $200 that realistically I'm going to post on Craigslist for $100. Somebody's going to lowball me at 50 and we're going to meet in the middle and I'm going to sell it for $65. Or I could not get that $65 and I could give it to somebody else and they don't have to spend the $200 that I spent on that thing. And I'm giving them $200 worth of value, and I'm only losing $60 worth of opportunity cost. Totally worth it to me, right? To make a friend have an easier time with that thing. Yeah. And I can recommend it specifically, right? Because I'm an asshole. Well, I'll come out and say it. The stuff that I bought for my kid that I really like, I'm either holding on to for the next baby, or I will actively give away to other people because I like it. The stuff that I have bought that I don't like, that kind of sucks, that I wish I had bought a different model of, that's the stuff I sell. That's the stuff I'll sell to somebody else and let them buy it from me because I don't want to pass this kind of shitty thing on to the next dad, right?
Well, yeah, which is fair because you don't want to be like, hey, here's this free item. Oh, by the way, it sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wow, he must not like me.
Having something is better than having nothing in most situations.
Yes.
But I would rather like tell you, hey, don't buy this particular backpack, buy this one instead. And then I sell that one. And like, you know, that's just me. That's my approach.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's a good approach. Hopefully it did not pick up your dog freaking out about whatever it is. Which gives me a good idea, you know, because this podcast is about dads helping dads.
Yeah.
We should create that for dads. Like, hey, as dads, let's help each other. Hey, you need something? Let us know. And then we will see.
For sure.
Create that network. Hey, I'm having a hard time. I'm going to reach out to somebody. Hey, I need clothes for a newborn. Anybody help me out? Kind of thing. Because again, that's why we created this podcast.
Totally.
To help each other. And again, I have, I've bought secondhand stuff. I myself wear secondhand stuff. I have given my kids better stuff than I have because, that's what happens. I have learned, in my 30s that, again, I don't care if somebody's going to judge me. I'm not going to judge somebody else because we don't know who's in what area of life, what people can afford, what people like. Just because they bought that $20 JanSport backpack and they're using it as a diaper bag doesn't mean they can't afford anything else. It's like maybe they just like JanSport backpacks for whatever reason. Not sponsored, by the way. I don't even know if that's a brand anymore.
No, totally. And I mean, that goes for everything, right? Like, when I see somebody walking down the street in jeans and a t-shirt, I don't go, oh, that guy can't afford a tuxedo. Like, that's not at all what my initial thought is. In the same way, like, if I see somebody using a JanSport as a diaper bag, I'm like, hell yeah, that's resourceful. Like,
yeah, you're saving money, man. I respect that.
Or maybe you just liked it. Maybe you spent fucking, I don't know what a JanSport costs, $50. Like, probably as much as a good diaper bag. Like, maybe that is just the style that you like. Go for it. Nobody is judging you. Nobody that matters is judging you. Let me correct that.
And that's the biggest thing. Nobody that actually matters in your life is judging you. Unless it comes, like you said, unless it's a safety issue, which again, if you're in that situation, reach out to us. We will see what we can do because the safety of our children, safety of our children is number one in all of our books. Like, if you need that car seat, we will get together as a community and get you a damn car seat.
Totally. So, like, what are some other, like, that we started this episode talking about, like, keeping up with the Joneses, right? The baby race episode of Bluey. You and I talked about this before the show. Like, what are some other ways that you see, either yourself or me or other dads, like, kind of chasing that dream, if you will?
I think the biggest thing is that milestones. Like, you hit on that, and I think that is the biggest issue that plagues us as parents. And dads have to hear it from the significant others, the baby mamas, to kind of lump them all together. Is, hey, my kid was walking first. Look at me be awesome. Like, I've had so many different kids. I have tried to compare the kids. It's not fair to the children to compare them. Milestones will happen. Throughout our entire lives, milestones happen.
Totally.
Just because your kid walked first, maybe my kid will get their high school diploma at 10 years old because how yesterday or our last episode you're like, I graduated early, I'm goody. But I'm not comparing myself to you. Like, I know you are a very intelligent person. Like, just because, again, it happens at the beginning, there is a whole other 100 years past that. Like, that is my biggest takeaway from everything of keeping up with the Joneses, baby race, whatever you want to kind of call this episode or take out of this episode. Milestones. Don't judge your kid based off of those.
Yeah. One, and I'll go a step further and say, don't judge yourself based off of milestones, right?
Yes.
There's so much, like, without going down a whole rabbit hole, the economy is rough right now. And so, like, I have multiple friends that, like, see my job or what I do or the way that I'm able to take care of my family and are like, man, I must be doing something wrong because I'm not XYZ, right? And I've felt the same way about other people in my life who are, have bigger titles or better salaries or whatever than I do. And I'm like, man, like I should be further along in my. Put that aside.
Real quick, aside.
Because always strive to be better. Always strive to try harder. But like, sorry, go ahead, Derek.
No. Like you're hitting a. I don't want to say a nerve. You're hitting exactly something that, like, as dads, as adults, we run into the whole. We're title chasing. We're trying to hit those milestones, air quotes, for those of you who are listening. It was a conversation I had with April probably a few months ago. She goes, why does it matter what you're doing? Who actually cares? I could be a fucking janitor and be the happiest man alive. And you know what? My personal happiness is what matters most. If you say, again, we're tying it back to that Gucci diaper bag dad. Like, if you're like, wow, you're a janitor, you're a piece of shit. We're not meant to be friends. Like,
yeah, 100%. Fuck that guy.
So again, let's titles are not as important as you think they are. If your family is safe, if your family is fed, if you can pay the bills, nobody cares what your title is, what you do for a living, any of that shit.
Yeah, one, like you and I had this conversation recently, right? Because I started with a new company this year, and like I straight up had the conversation like throughout the hiring process where they were like, well, what title do you want? And I was like, what do you need to pay me X? Like, what do you need to call me for my salary to be this number? And then call me that. Because if you can meet the number, like the salary that I need to take care of my family, and you call me a janitor, I will be the happiest janitor in the world, taking care of my family and making sure everybody is fed.
Exactly.
If you need to call me a senior vice president to give me the salary that pays for my family, I guess I'll be senior vice president of janitorial services. Like, I do not care. Whatever makes sense for you. And that's not true of everyone, right? And like, obviously there are very different, like if you're in a military structure, right? Like rank is important because rank is directly tied to pay.
Yes.
There are certain states that like have laws where like you can't pay somebody minimum wage and call them a director. Like you legally cannot do that. But at the end of the day, like the people around you aren't going to care what you do, what your title is, what your business card says. What I do is take care of my family. I do a job that makes me happy, that feels fulfilling for me, and that pays my bills. And at the end of the day, no one needs to know what that title is, because that's the part that matters.
Because, at some point, if you came up to me and you're the senior vice president, I am no longer going to feel worthy of your presence. Like, just an example, because let's say I work an entry-level job and you're senior vice president, like, I'm going to feel as the entry-level person, I'm going to feel a certain way. Like, again, titles are not important. So like, keep them out of conversation. Like, hey, yeah, I work for a trucking company, or I work for McDonald's, or I work for, insert job fucking here. Like, again, at the end of the day, who gives a shit? Take care of your family, feed your family, keep them safe. Like, that's all that we want.
Yeah, well, and the thing that I'll remind everyone here as we discuss this specifically, titles are relative to the size of your business too, right?
Yeah, true.
I could be a manager at a $1 billion corporation and be doing the exact same job as a senior vice president of a startup, because that title means I manage 3 people. Right? Or like whatever the scale there is. So like, just because somebody has a higher title doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing better. Just because somebody has a lower title doesn't mean that they're doing worse. Assume that people are doing well and they're taking care of themselves and the people in their lives. And that's the only thing that really matters, man. Like, I know I'm part of that generation that's like, the people before, like my dad and my grandfather's generation probably cared a lot more about what their job title was.
Yeah.
And I work with a lot of people who are like that, partially because, as we've talked about, Derek and I work in the transportation industry, and there are a lot of veterans in that business. And obviously rank is a very important thing. But like, for me, I could not care less. Like, as long as I am getting the respect from my team that I need and the understanding of what my job is, I don't care what you call me. Just make sure that I get paid what I need to get paid, and we're good.
Just make sure our paychecks are on time every time. That's all that matters.
Yeah. You can call me whatever you want, just don't call me late for dinner.
Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome. It's a dad podcast. I had to say it.
I know you did. I thought it. I definitely thought it. But I was like, you know what? I'm not. For anybody listening who has made it this far, I am not a dad joke person. I don't understand the dad joke humor. And you would think I would have gotten it after fucking 4 or 5 kids. Like we'll
put a pin in a dad joke episode for a future podcast.
I you know what? We definitely should do a dad joke podcast, because I think it would be fantastic to just have everybody see what can make me laugh, because I do not like dad jokes. I like it. I do not like dad jokes. I think they're terrible. You know what? We'll put my wife in here too. She loves dad jokes. We should get your wife too. I know. We're recording. We're having this whole thing. I think this would make for a great episode. So anybody listening, anybody watching, give us your best dad jokes. Send them in.
Yeah,
we will put them in the episode. As long as they are obviously appropriate. We will throw them in there, and we'll see. Because
we've set such a low bar for explicit explicit content on here.
There's like, we're here. There is a limit, and
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So, to tie this all up, send us your dad jokes. We'll do an episode of dad jokes to see what makes me the one who hates them the most, but who smiles the most.
How dare you? How dare you?
My nickname, and when I was deployed to Kuwait, was Smiley, because I smile at everything. But I don't like dad jokes. Figure that one out.
Well, definitely don't compare your dad jokes to other dad jokes, because there is no threshold there.
They're all terrible. Just there is a threshold of terrible and terrible. Like,
yeah, they're all the best.
No,
just keep telling them they're all so funny. You're the funniest dad.
I am. Thank you.
Thank you for spending another week with us and listening to us talk about everything that's on our minds. We would love to hear what's on your mind. Comment down below what you want. Well, first of all, comment your best dad joke. And then tell us what you want to hear for our next episode. We're always looking for feedback. We've been posting on our social media every once in a while, letting people know, like, hey, we're open to suggestions. We want to talk about the things that are relevant to your life as a dad, as a dude, as a person. So, let us know what our next episode should be. Follow us on all of our social media. We've got Instagram, we've got Twitter, we've got TikTok. Derek is working tirelessly to get our short form content out there for all of you TikTok subscribers and YouTube short fans. We're trying to keep things going, because we want to reach as many people as possible, and we realize that not everybody has a commute to burn, right? We try to keep this to roughly the time it takes us to get to work in the morning. Not that we're recording on our drive to work, that'd be wild.
But
hopefully we're producing on your drive to work.
There we go.
So thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate all of you. And until next week, I'm Andrew Goody.
And I'm Derek Mata.
And we are proud of you.